Macmillan Audio presents Washington Rules, America's Path to Permanent War by Andrew J. Bacevich. Read for you by Sean Runnette. Suffer us not to mock ourselves with falsehood. T.S. Eliot, Ash Wednesday, 1930. Introduction. Slow learner. Worldly ambition inhibits true learning. Ask me, I know. A young man in a hurry is nearly uneducable. He knows what he wants and where he's headed. When it comes to looking back or entertaining heretical thoughts, he has neither the time nor the inclination. All that counts is that he is going somewhere. Only as ambition wanes does education become a possibility. My own education did not commence until I had reached middle age. I can fix its start date with precision. For me, education began in Berlin on a winter's evening at the Brandenburg Gate, not long after the Berlin Wall had fallen. As an officer in the U.S. Army, I had spent considerable time in Germany. Until that moment, however, my family and I never had occasion to visit this most famous of German cities, still littered with artifacts of a deeply repellent history. At the end of a long day of exploration, we found ourselves in what had, until just months before, been the communist East. It was late, and we were hungry, but I insisted on walking the length of the Unter den Linden, from the river Spree to the gate itself. A cold rain was falling, and the pavement glistened. The buildings lining the avenue, dating from the era of Prussian kings, were dark, dirty, and pitted. Few people were about. It was hardly a night for sightseeing. For as long as I could remember, the Brandenburg Gate had been the preeminent symbol of the age, and Berlin the epicenter of contemporary history. Yet by the time I made it to the once-and-future German capital, history was already moving on. The Cold War had abruptly ended. A divided city and a divided nation had reunited. For Americans who had known Berlin only from a distance, the city existed primarily as a metaphor. Pick a date: 1933, 1942, 1945, 1948, 1961, 1989, and Berlin becomes an instructive symbol of power, depravity, tragedy, defiance, endurance, or vindication. For those inclined to view the past as a chronicle of parables, the modern history of Berlin offered an abundance of material. The greatest of those parables emerged from the events of 1933 to 1945, an epic tale of evil ascendant, belatedly confronted, then heroically overthrown. A second narrative, woven from events during the intense period immediately following World War II, saw hopes for peace dashed, yielding a bitter antagonism, but also great resolve. The ensuing standoff, the long twilight struggle, in John Kennedy's memorable phrase, formed the centerpiece of the third parable. Its central theme, stubborn courage in the face of looming peril. Finally came the exhilarating events of 1989, with freedom ultimately prevailing, not only in Berlin but throughout Eastern Europe. What exactly was I looking for at the Brandenburg Gate? Perhaps confirmation that those parables, which I had absorbed and accepted as true, were just that. Whatever I expected, what I actually found was a cluster of shabby-looking young men, not German, hawking badges, medallions, hats, bits of uniforms, and other artifacts of the mighty Red Army. It was all junk, cheaply made and shoddy. For a handful of Deutschmarks, I bought a wristwatch emblazoned with the symbol of the Soviet Armored Corps. Within days, it ceased to work. Huddling among the scarred columns, those peddlers, almost certainly off-duty Russian soldiers awaiting redeployment home, constituted a subversive presence. They were loose ends of a story that was supposed to have ended neatly when the Berlin Wall came down. As we hurried off to find warmth and a meal, this disconcerting encounter stuck with me, and I began to entertain.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?